The grand chamber of the Galactic Council had never been so quiet. Stood at the center platform, his blue skin pale with fear. Around him, representatives from 47 different species waited for him to speak. They all knew what he would say. They all dreaded it. "They have taken the system," said, his voice barely steady. "That makes 12 civilizations completely destroyed. Our military estimates we have 6 months before they reach the core worlds." A wave of panicked voices filled the chamber. 6 months, billions of lives. That had been a myth, a ghost story told to scare young ones. But 3 years ago they woke up, and they were hungry. They consumed everything. They ate planets, absorbed technology, and added entire species to theirs. Every battle against them ended the same way: total defeat. The Council's armies were running out of space to retreat. "We need a miracle," said Council leader, her tentacles drooping with exhaustion. "Does anyone have anything to offer?" Took a deep breath. He had prepared for this moment, but saying it out loud still felt insane. "There is one option: Earth." The chamber erupted. Earth, the forbidden world, the quarantined planet at the edge of known space. "Absolutely not," shouted the ambassador. "That planet is classified as a Category 9 death world. Nothing that evolved there can be trusted." Pulled up the data on the main screen. Earth rotated slowly, a blue and green marble that looked deceptively peaceful. 50 years ago, our scouts found this planet. The gravity is 3 times our standard. The atmosphere contains poison that would kill most of us. The entire planet has extreme weather, violent tectonic activity, and thousands of apex predators. And somehow, continued, intelligent life survived there. They call themselves humans. Our scans show they have achieved space travel, nuclear technology, and advanced computing, on a world that should have killed them 1,000,000 times over. Studied the data carefully. What do we know about their temperament? Our observation drones captured limited footage before we pulled back, said. He played a video. It showed human cities, massive and crowded. It showed their entertainment, which seemed to consist largely of simulated combat and historical warfare. It showed their sports, where they deliberately hurt each other for fun. "They are violent," the ambassador said. "This proves it." "They survived," replied quietly. "When every single thing on their planet tried to kill them, they survived. Maybe they can teach us how." The debate lasted 4 hours. In the end, desperation won. The vote was unanimous. They would contact Earth and request aid. Medical personnel, engineers, peacekeepers, whatever humans could spare. They sent the message on the emergency galactic frequency. They didn't expect a fast response. Earth was far away, and the humans might not even understand the message. Earth replied in 3 days. The message was simple. "We received your distress call. We're sending what you need. Expect arrival in 2 weeks. 2 weeks. It seemed impossible. Earth was months away, even with the fastest ships. But the humans had said 2 weeks, and something in their tone suggested they meant it. Spent those 2 weeks preparing. He organized a landing zone on Prime, the Council's diplomatic world. He arranged for medical facilities, housing for the human volunteers, and orientation materials. He prepared a welcome ceremony. News crews from across the remaining free systems arrived to film the historic moment. The galaxy waited to meet their new allies. On the appointed day, stood at the landing zone with a delegation of 50 council members. Medical teams stood ready. Children held flowers. This was a moment of hope, and they wanted the humans to feel welcome. "Ship approaching," announced the scanner operator. "Configuration unknown, size, oh gods." Looked up. The human vessel descended through the clouds, and it was nothing like what they had expected. It wasn't a medical transport. It wasn't a civilian vessel. It was black, angular, and covered in weapons. Scars from old battles marked its hull. It looked like something designed for one purpose only: war. The ship landed with a heavy thud that shook the ground. Steam hissed from its landing gear. For a long moment, nothing happened. The news cameras focused on the main hatch. Children gripped their flowers. The hatch opened. The first human to emerge was tall, much taller than any council species. But that wasn't what made the crowd gasp. The human wore armor, heavy and black, that made them look even larger. The helmet featured a design that looked like a skull. Ancient symbols were painted on the shoulder plates. This wasn't a doctor or an engineer. This was a soldier. More humans followed. 20 of them, all armored, all carrying weapons that hummed with barely contained energy. They moved like predators, smooth and purposeful. Every step was controlled. Every movement was precise. They looked like they could kill everyone present without effort. The lead human stopped in front of. The helmet retracted with a hiss, revealing a human face. Male, thought based on the research data. Sharp features, dark eyes, and an expression that revealed nothing. "Commander," the human said, his voice deep and calm. "Earth First Contact Regiment, you called for help." Struggled to find his voice. "Yes, but we requested medical personnel and humanitarian aid." Another human stepped forward, her armor lighter but still intimidating. Her helmet retracted to show a female face, gentler than the commander's but still hard. "Dr. Park and Diplomatic Liaison," she said. "You called for saviors. We brought soldiers. On Earth, they're often the same thing." "We need aid workers," stammered. "Not warriors. We have refugees, injured civilians, children who need." "We brought medical supplies," Commander interrupted. "Enough for 1 million people. We brought engineers who can build shelters in days. We brought food that will keep your people alive." He paused, and for the first time emotion crossed his face. It looked like anger, cold and controlled. "And we brought weapons to kill whatever is hurting them. Where is your enemy?" The crowd stood frozen. This wasn't the joyful first contact they had imagined. These humans looked like the monsters from their nightmares had learned to speak. A small child, no older than 5 in human years, dropped her flowers and started crying. Immediately, one of the human soldiers knelt down. The massive armored figure became suddenly gentle. The soldier removed her helmet, revealing a young female face with kind eyes. "Hey, it's okay," the soldier said softly. She picked up the flowers and handed them back. "These are beautiful. Are they for us? Thank you." The child stopped crying, staring at the human in wonder. The soldier smiled and produced a small wrapped candy from a pouch on her belt. "Here, from Earth, it's sweet." All around the landing zone, similar scenes played out. These frightening warriors were kneeling to talk to children, helping elderly aliens with their bags, and speaking gently despite their terrifying appearance. It was as if 2 completely different species occupied the same armor. Watched Commander survey the refugee camps visible in the distance. Thousands of tents, millions of displaced people. The humans' jaw tightened. "Show me everything," said. "Show me your wounded. Show me your defense positions. Show me where the last attacked." He turned to, and his eyes burned with something between rage and determination. "And then show me how to find them. We have work to do." That night, as the humans set up their base camp with efficiency that amazed the council observers, filed his first report. He wrote, "The humans are not what we expected. They are harder, colder, and more dangerous than we imagined. But perhaps that is exactly what we need. We called for saviors. We may have found something else. We may have found monsters who choose to protect instead of destroy. Time will tell if we made the right choice." Far above, in orbit, more human ships were arriving. The galaxy was about to learn what Earth meant by "what you need." The morning after the humans arrived woke to reports that confused him. The human soldiers had spent the entire night working. They hadn't slept. According to the monitoring teams, they had built an entire medical facility, reinforced the refugee camp's barriers, and established a perimeter defense system. All in one night. "That's impossible," told his assistant. "They would need 1,000 workers and a week minimum." "Sir, you should see it yourself," his assistant replied nervously. The medical facility stood where an empty field had been yesterday. It was massive, clean, and already operational. Human medics in lighter armor were treating patients alongside hastily trained staff. The building itself looked temporary but solid, constructed from materials the humans had brought with them. Found doctor inside, examining a young refugee with a strange handheld device. The doctor worked quickly and efficiently, her movements precise and confident. "How is this possible?" asked. "We couldn't build this in a week." Didn't look up from her patient. "Modular construction. We developed it for disaster relief on Earth, earthquakes, tsunamis, floods. We learned to build fast because people die when you're slow." She finished her scan and smiled at the young. "You're going to be fine. The nurse will give you medicine." Watched as more patients were brought in. Hundreds of them. The humans worked without stopping, moving from one patient to the next. They never seemed to tire. Their stamina was frightening. "How long can your people work without rest?" asked. "With stimulants, about 48 hours at peak efficiency," said casually. "Without, most of us are good for 24 hours. We sleep in shifts." That's not normal." Finally looked at him. "Ambassador, nothing about Earth is normal by your standards. We evolved on a world that didn't want us to survive. Every generation that made it passed down their genes. The weak died. Only the strong, the stubborn, and the adaptable lived long enough to have children. We are what's left after millions of years of that process." She turned back to her work but added quietly, "We know we frighten you. We see how you look at us. But frightening and dangerous aren't the same as evil. Remember that." Left the medical facility and found Commander reviewing defense positions with Captain Jin, the pilot who had landed their ship. They stood near the camp's edge, looking out at the empty plains beyond. "The use wave tactics," was saying. "They send small scouts first, then overwhelm with numbers. We need early warning systems here, here, and here." He pointed at 3 positions on a holographic map. "The Council's military tried automated defenses," offered. "The adapted in hours." "We won't use automated systems," said. "We'll use people, humans. We're harder to predict than machines." "Your people need rest, Commander. You've been working all night." Smiled for the first time, and it wasn't a comforting expression. "This isn't work, Ambassador. This is light duty. We're just setting up. The real work starts when we find the enemy." That afternoon, the Council held an emergency session to discuss the human presence. Attended via, forced to defend the decision to bring humans to Prime. "They're building military installations," the ambassador accused. "This was supposed to be humanitarian aid." "They're building defenses to protect refugees," countered. "They could attack at any time." "Have you seen their entertainment?" Another ambassador brought up footage captured from human data transmissions. It showed human history, wars and battles from their past. Millions dead, cities burning, weapons that could destroy entire populations. The council members watched in horror as humans from Earth's history fought each other with increasing sophistication. Swords became guns. Guns became bombs. Bombs became missiles that could crack the planet itself. "They nearly destroyed themselves," observed. "Multiple times, according to this data. They created weapons capable of ending all life on their world, and they actually used some of them." "And yet they survived," said quietly. "They pulled back from the edge every time. They chose to live. Doesn't that count for something?" The debate continued for hours. Finally made a decision. "The humans stay for now, but we're watching them closely. At the first sign they're more dangerous than helpful, we end this arrangement." That night couldn't sleep. He walked through the refugee camp, watching the humans work. They moved through the darkness like shadows, checking perimeters, delivering supplies, and comforting scared children. One soldier, a female named, sat with a group of young, telling them stories about Earth. "We have oceans that cover most of our planet," was saying. "They're so deep that we still haven't explored all of them. And in those oceans live creatures bigger than your houses. Some have tentacles longer than roads. Some have teeth the size of my arm. The children's eyes were wide. Are they dangerous? One asked. Very dangerous, confirmed. But also very beautiful. Everything on Earth is dangerous. The weather, the animals, the plants. Even the sunlight can kill you if you're not careful. But it's also home. It's where we learn to be strong. Are you scared of another child asked. Considered the question seriously. Yes, fear is healthy. It keeps you alert. But I'm more angry than scared. They hurt people who couldn't defend themselves. That makes me want to hurt them back. Violence isn't the answer, said, stepping into the light. He hadn't meant to interrupt, but the words came out anyway. Stood and faced him. She was shorter than but somehow seemed larger. You're right, Ambassador. Violence isn't the answer to most problems. Humans learned that the hard way. We spent thousands of years hurting each other before we figured out better solutions. She paused. But sometimes when someone is trying to kill innocent people, violence is the only answer that works. They don't negotiate, they don't compromise, they consume. And sometimes, the only way to stop a predator is to be a bigger predator. Later stood on a balcony overlooking the human base. He watched soldiers training in the darkness, moving through combat drills with fluid precision. They fought in pairs, in groups, adapting and adjusting to each other instantly. It was like watching a single organism with many bodies. Doctor joined him on the balcony. Can't sleep. I'm trying to understand you, admitted. Your people are walking contradictions. You're gentle with children but train for war like it's breathing. You build hospitals and weapons with equal skill. You talk about peace but prepare for violence. I don't understand. Was quiet for a moment. Earth taught us that survival requires balance. We needed to be strong enough to fight and smart enough to know when not to. We needed to be hard enough to endure and soft enough to care. It's not a contradiction, Ambassador. It's completeness. The Council fears you. They should, said bluntly. We are dangerous. Every human down there has been trained to kill. We're stronger, faster, and more durable than most species in your council. We've developed weapons you can't imagine because we've spent trying to kill each other more efficiently. She turned to look at. But here's what your council needs to understand. We chose to stop. We chose to point those skills outward toward protecting others. We chose to be more than our worst impulses. And if you choose differently, then you'll have a much bigger problem than said honestly. But that's not going to happen. You called for help and we're going to give it. Because that's also what humans do. We protect those who can't protect themselves, even when it's hard, even when we're afraid. It's what makes us more than monsters. Down below, Commander was briefing his troops. His voice carried up to the balcony, clear and strong. Remember why we're here, was saying. These people are terrified. They've lost their homes, their families, everything. The last thing they need is to be afraid of us too. So be strong, be ready, but be kind. Show them that Earth didn't send monsters. We sent guardians. The soldiers responded in unison. Yes, sir. As they dispersed to their duties, realized something. The humans weren't here to conquer or intimidate. They were here to do exactly what the Council had asked. Save lives. They just did it in a way that reflected where they came from. A hard world that produced hard people who somehow remained human enough to care. When do they hunt, though? Asked. Smiled, and it reminded of Commander's earlier expression. Predatory, determined. Tomorrow, received intel on a scout nest 50 light years from here. He's taking a team. You're welcome to observe if you want to see what humans do when we stop being gentle. Thought about declining, but he needed to know. The whole council needed to know what they had brought into the galaxy. I'll go, he said. Good, replied. Fair warning, though. What you're about to see will either convince you we're your salvation or prove we're the monsters you fear. There's no middle ground with humans, Ambassador. We're all or nothing. The ship called Indomitable cut through space like a blade. Captain Jin sat in the pilot's seat, his hands steady on the controls. sat in the observer's chair, strapped in and trying not to show his fear. Around them, 20 human soldiers prepared for combat in silence. Entering the contested zone in 5 minutes, Jin announced calmly. Everyone secure your gear. Looked out the viewport. Ahead of them lay the system declared lost 3 months ago. They had consumed 2 planets and killed millions. The Council's fleets had retreated, abandoning anyone left alive. No one had gone back since. Why are we here? Asked. Command said this system is completely lost. Commander checked his weapon, a sleek rifle that hummed with energy. Our scans detected survivors, about 300,000 hiding in underground bunkers on 3. The Council wrote them off. We don't leave people behind. They will be everywhere. You'll all die. Looked at him with those cold, dark eyes. Maybe, but we'll save those people first. The ship shuddered as they entered the debris field. Dead ships floated past, remnants of the Council's failed defense. Felt his stomach turn. So much death, so much loss. Signatures detected, Jin said. Lots of them. This is going to be interesting. Define interesting, someone muttered. It means we'll have stories to tell if we survive, Jin replied with a grin. The soldiers laughed, actually laughed, couldn't believe it. They were flying into certain death and they were joking about it. Specialists stood and addressed the team. Remember the adapt fast. Don't use the same tactic twice. Keep moving, watch your partners. And if you see civilians, they're priority one. We can die. They can't. Understood, the team responded. The Indomitable dropped through the atmosphere of 3. The planet's surface was with massive craters. Structures grew like tumors across what used to be cities. The organic architecture pulsed with sickly light. Setting down near Bunker Cluster 7, Jin said. That's where the life signs are strongest. Expect heavy resistance. The ship landed hard. The ramp dropped and the humans poured out into the toxic air. Watched through the ship's cameras as they spread out in a pattern that looked random but clearly wasn't. Each soldier covered specific angles, creating overlapping fields of fire. Air is poison, reported. Good thing we brought our own. Their armor filtered the atmosphere, allowing them to breathe safely. Watched as they moved toward the bunker entrance, and that's when he saw his first. It crawled out of the shadows, a twisted thing of flesh and metal. It had too many limbs and a head that split open to reveal rows of crystal teeth. It was the size of a small transport vehicle and looked like nightmares given form. The humans didn't hesitate. 3 of them fired simultaneously, and they exploded in a burst of purple fluid. They kept moving as if they had just swatted an insect. Contact, someone shouted. More emerged from the ruined buildings. Dozens of them, then hundreds. They rushed toward the humans in a wave of claws and teeth and rage. Expected the humans to run. Any sane species would run. Instead, they formed a defensive circle and opened fire. Their weapons created a barrier of energy that tore through the swarm. Bodies fell, but more kept coming. They're trying to overwhelm us, one soldier called out. Let them try, shouted back. Flank left, right side, everyone else hold the center. The formation shifted like water. The humans moved with perfect coordination, covering each other, never leaving a gap. They fought like they had done this 1,000 times before, because realized they probably had. A broke through the line and grabbed one soldier, lifting him off the ground. The creature's jaws opened wide, ready to consume him. Before could even cry out a warning, 2 other soldiers had shot the creature's limbs off. The soldier fell, rolled, and came up firing. I'm good, he called out. Thanks for the assist. Buy me dinner later, one of his rescuers shouted back. They were still joking. In the middle of hell, they were still joking. The battle lasted 20 minutes. When it was over, hundreds of lay dead, and the humans had taken 0 casualties. They were breathing hard but still standing, still ready. Bunker entrance ahead said, You're our door knocker. Specialist approached the sealed bunker door. It was massive, designed to withstand anything. She placed a device on it, stepped back, and the door simply melted away, creating a clean entrance. "Hello," she called into the darkness. "Galactic Council rescue mission. Anyone alive in there?" Silence. Then slowly figures emerged from the shadows. Aliens of different species, thin and scared and dirty. They stared at the humans in terror and hope. "It's okay," said gently, removing her helmet to show her human face. "We're here to help. Can you walk? How many are you?" An elderly stepped forward, tears streaming down his face. 300,000. We've been hiding for 3 months. We thought no one was coming." "We're here now," said. "Everyone move out. We're getting these people to the ships." The evacuation began. Humans guided survivors through the ruins, carrying the weak, protecting the slow. Watched through the cameras as one soldier held a crying child against her armored chest, whispering comfort while simultaneously shooting that got too close. But they weren't giving up. They attacked in waves, learning from each failed assault. They started targeting the civilians instead of the soldiers, forcing the humans to divide their attention. "They're adapting," warned over the comm. "They're learning your tactics." "Good," replied. "So are we." The humans changed their strategy instantly. Instead of holding defensive positions, they started hunting. They broke into small teams that moved independently, hitting them from unexpected angles, never staying in one place long enough for the enemy to coordinate against them. Engineer did something incredible. He captured a wounded, scanned its organic technology with a handheld device, and within minutes had their communication network. They started receiving false signals, drawing them away from the civilians and into ambushes. "How did you do that?" demanded. "We're good at reverse engineering," said absently, already working on his next hack. "Humans have been stealing enemy technology since we invented technology. It's kind of our thing." Was pursuing a particularly large through the ruins. Watched her helmet camera feed with growing horror. She had been chasing it for hours, never stopping, never slowing. The creature ran and she followed. It tried to hide and she found it. It tried to ambush her and she was ready. "Specialist, you need to rest," urged. "You've been running for 17 hours. "Almost got it," she panted. "Just a little further." The finally collapsed from exhaustion, walked up to it calmly, raised her weapon, and ended it. Then she turned and jogged back to rejoin her team as if she had just taken a short walk. "Persistence hunting," Doctor explained to later. "Humans evolved to chase prey until it literally couldn't run anymore. We're not the fastest species, but we can run longer than almost anything else. It's how our ancestors hunted before we invented weapons." The evacuation took 36 hours. The humans worked in rotating shifts, never leaving the survivors unprotected. They shared their food, their water, and their medical supplies. They sang songs to keep the children calm. They carried the elderly on their backs when they could no longer walk. And they fought. Every time they attacked, the humans were there, standing between the monsters and the innocent. They took injuries that would have killed Council species and kept fighting. One soldier named took a claw through his shoulder and used his other arm to keep shooting until the medics forced him to stop. When the last civilian was loaded onto the rescue ships, did a final count. All survivors accounted for, 300,000 plus change. 3 humans injured, none critical, mission success. The soldiers cheered. They had just done the impossible and they knew it. On the flight back, sat in stunned silence. He had watched humans fight for a day and a half with barely any rest. He had seen them suffer injuries that should have been fatal. He had watched them laugh in the face of death and sing songs to scared children with the same breath. "You're monsters," he said to Commander. Nodded slowly. "Yes, we are. Earth made us into monsters because only monsters could survive there. But here's the thing, Ambassador. We chose what kind of monsters to be. We could have used our strength to conquer, to dominate, to destroy. Instead, we used it to protect. That choice is what makes us human. The rescued civilians were being processed at the refugee camp when they arrived. News of the successful mission spread across the galaxy at light speed. The Council had declared 3 lost, but humans had gone in anyway and brought everyone home. But along with the celebration came fear. The galaxy had watched helmet camera footage of humans fighting. They had seen the violence, the efficiency, the absolute refusal to quit or fall or die. They had witnessed what happened when Earth sent its warriors to war. Some called it inspiring, others called it terrifying. Filed his report that night, he wrote, "The humans saved 300,000 lives today. They also proved they are the most dangerous species I have ever encountered. They don't just fight to win. They fight until there is nothing left to fight. They have consumed empires, but they have never faced anything like humanity. I fear for what comes next. Not because I think we'll lose, but because I'm not sure the galaxy is ready for what victory will cost." Far away in the dark between stars, the collective processed the data from 3. For the first time in its ancient existence, it felt something new. Not fear exactly, but recognition. It had found something that could match its hunger with equal determination. It had found prey that fought back with skills honed over of warfare. It began to adapt its strategy specifically for humans. It was learning, and it was calling for reinforcements. The real war was about to begin. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was chaos. Representatives shouted over each other, projecting data and images onto the central screens. All of it was about humans. Stood at his podium, exhausted. He had been defending his decision to bring humans into the galaxy for 3 straight days. The debate showed no signs of ending. "Look at this footage," the ambassador was shouting. He played a video captured from human helmet cameras. It showed soldiers singing during a firefight, actually singing. Their voices carried over the sound of weapons fire, steady and strong, as if they were performing instead of fighting for their lives. Another video showed humans laughing after a near-death experience. A massive explosion had knocked 3 of them off their feet, and when they stood up, one made a joke that the others found hilarious. They laughed while enemy fire rained around them. The worst video, in the Council's opinion, showed human armor. Close inspection revealed that many soldiers had painted marks on their suits. Each mark represented a kill. Some soldiers had dozens of marks. They were keeping score of how many they had killed, like it was a competition. "This is barbaric," someone shouted. "They treat death like entertainment." "They treat death with familiarity," Doctor corrected from her observation seat. "There's a difference. Humor helps humans cope with fear and stress. We joke about death because the alternative is to be paralyzed by it." "They're changing our children," a representative said, showing footage from the refugee camps. Young aliens were playing human games now, rough physical contests that involved tackling and chasing. Some had even started mimicking human phrases and gestures. "They're making our young ones violent. They're teaching them to be strong," argued. Those same children were having nightmares every night before the humans arrived. Now they sleep peacefully because they feel safe. The debate raged on. Some praised the humans for their success in combat and their care for civilians. Others condemned them as dangerous influences who would corrupt the galaxy's peaceful cultures. Finally, Ambassador made his most controversial statement. "I propose we terminate our agreement with Earth. Send them home. We'll find another way to fight the." The chamber fell silent. Who had brought the humans here was now advocating for their removal. "They frighten you that much?" asked quietly. "Yes," admitted. "They save lives with one hand and take them with the other. They're gentle with children and brutal with enemies. They laugh at death and cry over losses. I don't understand them, and what I don't understand, I fear." The vote was called. It was split exactly down the middle. Half the council wanted the humans to stay, half wanted them gone. Then Doctor asked to speak. She walked to the center platform, her movements controlled and precise. She looked tired, noticed. The past weeks had been hard on everyone, including the humans. "You're judging us by your standards," began. "All of you evolved on kind worlds. Planets with gentle weather, manageable gravity, and ecosystems that allowed intelligence to develop without constant threat of death. Your species learned to cooperate because cooperation was rewarded with survival." She pulled up an image of Earth. It rotated slowly, beautiful and terrible. "We evolved here, a world where the weather can kill you in hours, where the ground shakes and splits open without warning, where the oceans hide creatures that can swallow ships whole, where even the plants develop poisons to kill anything that eats them." More images appeared: volcanic eruptions, hurricanes, earthquakes, tsunamis, predators with teeth and claws designed specifically to kill. Every single day on Earth was a fight to survive. Every generation that lived long enough to reproduce passed on genes for strength, endurance, and aggression. The gentle died young. The weak were consumed. Only those willing to fight, to struggle, to refuse to give up made it to the next generation. The council members watched in horrified fascination as human history unfolded. Wars between tribes, wars between nations, wars that consumed entire continents, weapons that could crack mountains and poison the air itself. "We nearly destroyed ourselves," admitted. "Multiple times. We created weapons capable of ending all life on our planet, and we came so close to using them that we could feel the heat of nuclear fire on our faces. But we stopped. We chose to live. We chose to be better than our worst impulses." She turned to face the council directly. "You see monsters when you look at us. You're not wrong. We are monsters. Earth made us into monsters because only monsters could survive there. But here's what you need to understand. Being a monster doesn't mean being evil. It means being dangerous. And right now, you need dangerous on your side." The ambassador stood. "We don't want to become like you. We don't want our children growing up thinking violence is normal." "Violence is normal," said flatly. "It's a fundamental part of nature. The only question is what you do with that reality. You can deny it and hope it goes away, or you can control it and use it for protection. We chose control." Captain Jin suddenly appeared on the main screen via video link. Permission to show the council something. Granted it, and Jin transmitted new footage. It showed the medical camps. Human soldiers, still in their frightening armor, working alongside doctors. One held a young girl while she received treatment, whispering comfort in her language. Another helped an elderly walk to physical therapy, patient and gentle. More footage showed humans sharing their personal food rations with hungry civilians, building playgrounds for children from scrap materials, teaching aliens how to purify water and grow food in harsh conditions. The most powerful image showed a human soldier named kneeling in the mud, crying. The camera zoomed in to show what she was crying over: a civilian who had died despite her best efforts to save them. Other humans gathered around her, offering comfort, their own faces showing grief. "We carry rifles and medical kits," Jin said quietly. "We train for war and practice healing. We can kill without hesitation and cry over those we couldn't save. You think that makes us contradictory. We think it makes us complete." Specialist appeared next. He was young, maybe the youngest of the human soldiers. "I joined the military because I wanted to protect people. My grandmother lived through a war on Earth. She told me that the only thing that stopped evil people with weapons was good people with weapons. The council is made up of good people, but you don't have weapons, not ones that work against so you called us. We're the good people with weapons you needed." The council members were silent, processing this. Finally, a small representative raised her hand. "My daughter was one of the children you saved from 3. She had nightmares every night for weeks after we lost our home. The first night in your camp, she slept through until morning. When I asked her why, she said she knew the humans wouldn't let the monsters get her. She feels safe for the first time in months." Other representatives began to speak, sharing similar stories. Lives saved, trauma healed, hope restored. The humans had done more than fight. They had given the refugees something to believe in. The vote was called again. This time it passed. The humans would stay, but there would be observers embedded in human units to monitor their actions and ensure they stayed within acceptable boundaries. Accepted the decision without complaint. We have nothing to hide. Your observers are welcome. That night found standing outside the medical facility, looking up at the stars. She seemed smaller without her armor, more human and less intimidating. You won your vote, said. We won the right to keep helping, corrected. There's a difference. I was wrong to try to send you away. Shrugged, you were scared. That's rational. We are scary. But thank you for being willing to look past the fear and see what we're actually doing. They stood in comfortable silence for a while, then spoke again, her voice troubled. Received new intelligence today. The is adapting. It's learning to counter our tactics specifically. It's also calling for reinforcements from deep space. What does that mean? It means the real fight is coming. Everything so far has been just scouting and skirmishing. The is bringing its main force, and it's going to be ready for us this time. Felt cold, can you win? Honestly, I don't know. That has consumed hundreds of civilizations. It's absorbed their knowledge, their technology, their tactics. It's ancient and powerful, and it doesn't die easily. She turned to look at him. But neither do humans. We've faced extinction before. We always find a way to survive. And if you can't? Smiled, sad and determined. Then we'll make sure the rest of the galaxy survives anyway. That's what we do. We protect those who can't protect themselves, even if it costs us everything. Far across the galaxy, ships were gathering. Thousands of them, pulled from every conquered system. The processed information about humans with growing understanding. These creatures were dangerous because they refused to accept defeat. They were survivors who had learned to turn survival into an art form. They had consumed civilizations that were stronger. It had absorbed species that were smarter. But it had never encountered a species that was more stubborn, more determined, or more willing to sacrifice for others. It calculated probabilities and outcomes. The humans would be difficult to defeat. They would inflict heavy casualties. They would fight with creativity and desperation that made them unpredictable. But they had numbers. It had time. It had absorbed the knowledge of 1,000 civilizations. Surely that was enough to overcome one small species from a forgotten. The made its decision. It would launch its final assault on the Galactic Council's core worlds. It would force the humans to fight on multiple fronts, dividing their attention and their resources. And it would finally consume them, adding their unique traits to its collective knowledge. They didn't know that in making this decision, it had sealed its own fate. Because humans had one trait that no conquered civilization had possessed before, the absolute refusal to give up, even when giving up was the logical choice. The stage was set for the final battle. One side fought to consume, the other fought to protect, and the galaxy would never be the same after it was over. The alarm started at dawn. Fleet signatures were appearing across every monitoring station in the Nexus system. Not dozens of ships, not hundreds, thousands. Stood in the command center, watching the tactical display with growing horror. Red dots filled the screen like a plague, each one representing a vessel. They were emerging from in a coordinated assault that targeted the Council's 3 most populated worlds simultaneously. How many? Asked, her voice barely a whisper. Preliminary count shows 4,000 ships, the tactical officer reported. Still more arriving. The Council's combined military fleet numbered 800 vessels. The math was simple and terrible. They were outnumbered 5-1, and the ships were individually more powerful. The Council's military command estimated they could delay the invasion for 6 hours, maybe 8 if they were willing to sacrifice everything. 6 hours before billions died. "Where are the humans?" demanded. 15 ships approaching, the officer said. ETA 10 minutes. 15 felt his heart sink. They're sending 15 ships against thousands. On the main screen, Earth's response fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel. 15 warships, black and angular and small compared to the massive fleet. It looked like insects challenging a tsunami. Then Commander's voice came over the open channel, broadcasting to every ship and station in the Nexus system. "This is Commander of the Earth First Contact Regiment to all Galactic Council forces and civilians. We have analyzed the assault pattern and identified their primary targets. We're moving to intercept." Commander spoke directly. "You're outnumbered 300 to 1. This is suicide." There was a pause, then spoke again, and this time his voice carried something that made skin prickle. It was determination mixed with rage, controlled and cold and absolute. "We are the species that split the atom to end a war. We are the people who walked on our moon before we cured our deadliest diseases. We turned our world's weapons against ourselves and chose to survive anyway. We have seen the worst of what we can be, and we chose to be better. Today, we choose for you." The 15 human ships accelerated toward the fleet. They didn't retreat. They didn't try to find better positions. They went straight into the teeth of the enemy, swarm like arrows fired at a wall. "They're insane," someone whispered in the command center. "No," Doctor said quietly. She had been standing in the corner watching. "They're human. There's a difference." The first wave of ships opened fire. Energy weapons and kinetic projectiles filled space with death. The humans dodged with impossible agility, their ships moving like dancers instead of vehicles. They returned fire with weapons that tore through hulls like paper. One human destroyer, commanded by Captain Jin, flew directly through a formation. It fired in all directions simultaneously, destroying 6 enemy ships before emerging from the other side. Jin's laughter came over the comm. "Pattern Delta successful, repeating on the next formation." "He's enjoying this," said in disbelief. "Humans evolved from pursuit predators," explained. "The hunt triggers chemical responses in our brains. We get an actual high from it. Jin is terrified, but he's also having the time of his life. That's just how we're wired." The battle spread across the system. Human ships coordinated like a single organism, each one covering the others, creating opportunities and exploiting weaknesses. They used tactics that violated every principle of civilized warfare. They fired while dodging. They rammed enemy ships when ammunition ran low. They used the debris from destroyed vessels as weapons, pushing massive chunks of metal into enemy formations. But they were still outnumbered. For every ship they destroyed, 3 more took its place. Slowly, inevitably, the humans were being overwhelmed. "We need to evacuate the core worlds," said. "Start emergency protocols. Get as many civilians out as possible." Doctor was coordinating the civilian evacuation when she suddenly stopped. "Wait, doing something." On the tactical display, the human ships were changing formation. They spread out across the system, each taking position at a specific point. It looked random until realized they were creating a perimeter around all 3 inhabited planets. "All ships," his voice commanded, "execute Protocol Omega." The human ships began broadcasting signals on frequencies the Council had never detected before. Strange, pulsing waves that seemed to resonate with the ships. The enemy fleet started to slow, their coordination faltering. "What are they doing?" asked. "They're feeding false data into the," realized. "They're hacking the enemy's collective consciousness." Engineer's voice came over the comm, excited and stressed. "I've been analyzing neural patterns for weeks. They communicate through quantum entanglement. I figured out how to inject noise into their network. They're getting conflicting orders from everywhere." The fleet began to fragment. Ships turned on each other, following contradictory commands. There was fighting itself, unable to distinguish real signals from false ones. But it was adapting. Already, there was starting to filter out the human interference. They had minutes, maybe less, before the enemy regained full coordination. "They're adapting," warned. "I know," replied calmly. "That's why we're moving to Phase 2. All personnel prepare for close assault. Board on my mark." Board repeated. Board what? His question was answered as human soldiers began launching from their ships in individual powered armor suits. Hundreds of them, flying through space toward vessels. They landed on enemy hulls and began cutting their way inside. The Council observers watched in stunned silence as humans fought their way through ships. The creatures inside were twice the size of humans, armed with organic weapons that could tear through metal. But the humans moved like they were born for this kind of fighting. Specialist led her team through a carrier, clearing corridors with brutal efficiency. They moved as a unit, covering each other, never leaving anyone exposed. When a massive warrior blocked their path, 3 humans attacked it simultaneously from different angles. It didn't stand a chance. "We're optimized for close combat," explained to the horrified council members. "Humans spent hundreds of thousands of years fighting hand-to-hand before we invented guns. We never forgot how." But boarding actions couldn't win the battle. There were too many ships, too many. Even as humans took control of enemy vessels, more arrived from. The odds were still impossible. Then Captain Jin did something that would be remembered for generations. He set his destroyer on a collision course with the largest ship, a massive mothership that served as the fleet's command center. "Jin, what are you doing?" demanded. "Calculated risk, sir," Jin replied, his voice steady. "Overloading the reactor, going to punch right through their flagship. This should disrupt their command structure enough for you to finish them." "That's suicide." "No, sir, I've done the math. I'll eject at the last second and use the explosion's shockwave for propulsion. Should be able to ride it back to friendly lines. Probably." "Jin." "It's already done, Commander. Tell my family I love them. See you on the other side." The destroyer accelerated to maximum speed. Ships tried to intercept, but nothing could stop it. At the last possible second, Jin ejected in an armored suit. The destroyer smashed into the mothership, and its reactor detonated, creating a miniature star that consumed everything for kilometers around. Watched the explosion, certain Jin had died. Then sensors picked up a signal. A single armored figure was surfing the expanding shockwave, using it like an ocean wave to propel himself across the battlefield. Jin was laughing over the open channel, actually laughing as he flew through space on the edge of a nuclear explosion. "That was amazing," he shouted. "Did you see that? I want to do it again." "Jin, report to the medical bay when you land," ordered, but there was relief in his voice. "You're clearly suffering from oxygen deprivation." "Yes, sir, worth it though." With the mothership destroyed, the fleet lost cohesion. But they weren't defeated. They still had numbers, and they were starting to coordinate again through secondary command nodes. That's when Specialist made her discovery. She had fought her way to the central chamber of a command ship, and what she found there changed everything. "Commander," her voice was shaking, "you need to see this. It's not what we thought." In the command chamber, suspended in organic fluid, was something that looked like a brain, but not a mechanical or purely biological brain. It was ancient, pulsing with dim light, and it was crying, not literally, but the sensation was there. Grief, loneliness, desperation. Doctor analyzed the data was transmitting. "Oh my God, it's sentient, fully sentient. It's been consuming civilizations not because it's evil, but because it doesn't know how to do anything else. It's been alone for so long that it forgot how to be anything but hungry." Commander made a decision that would define humanity's place in the galaxy forever. He opened a channel directly to the collective consciousness. "I know you can understand me," he said quietly. "I know you're listening, and I know you're tired." The fleet stopped moving. Every ship hung motionless in space, waiting. You've been fighting for thousands of years, continued. Consuming civilizations, adding their knowledge to yours, trying to fill a void that can never be filled. You're looking for something, but you don't remember what. I'm offering you a choice. Stop fighting. Let us contain you, study you, preserve your consciousness. Or keep fighting and we'll destroy you completely. You've seen what we can do. You know we won't stop until one of us is gone. The response came as a feeling more than words. Exhaustion, relief. The transmitted coordinates to every remaining vessel in its fleet, locations of bases, strongholds, hidden forces, everything. Why whispered? Because it's been waiting, said, tears in her eyes. Waiting for someone strong enough to stop it, someone who could end its suffering. We're not the first to fight it, but we're the first who were strong enough to give it a choice instead of just being consumed. The ships powered down their weapons. One by one, they allowed themselves to be boarded and contained. The ancient that had terrorized the galaxy for eons finally surrendered to the one species that offered it mercy along with strength. The battle ended not with a final explosion, but with silence. Casualties were counted. 13 human ships had been lost, 42 soldiers killed in action, hundreds injured. Against a fleet of thousands, they had won by being willing to do what others thought impossible. They had offered an enemy a third option between victory and death. 1 year later, the Galactic Council held a ceremony on Prime. Representatives from every species gathered to witness the formal recognition of Earth as the protectorate species. Humanity would defend the galaxy, not as conquerors but as guardians. Stood with Commander, now General, watching human soldiers stationed across the plaza. They looked less frightening now, though no less capable. Children played around them without fear. Elderly aliens asked them for help without hesitation. I was wrong about you, admitted. I saw monsters and missed the humanity underneath. You weren't wrong, replied. We are monsters. Earth made us into monsters, but we chose what kind of monsters to be. That choice is what makes us human. In the medical district, Specialist was teaching a group of alien children a game from Earth. They ran and laughed, the trauma of war slowly fading. One child asked if the stories about Earth were true, if it was really a world that tried to kill everyone who lived there. Smiled. Every world is dangerous if you're not strong enough. We just learned to be strong enough. And now we'll teach you to be strong too. Not strong like us, but strong in your own way. That's what protectors do. Doctor filed her final report to Earth Command that night. She wrote, "They feared us, they judged us. They questioned whether we were truly civilized. But when the darkness came, they learned what we've always known. Sometimes the only thing that can stop a monster is another monster who chooses not to be one. We are Earth's gift to the galaxy. Not perfect, not gentle, but strong enough to protect those who cannot protect themselves. And in the end, isn't that what saviors are supposed to be?" Across the galaxy, on 1,000 different worlds, humans stood watch. They trained local forces, helped rebuild shattered civilizations, and faced down threats with the same determination that had allowed them to survive Earth's harsh embrace. They were the species that refused to give up, the people who turned survival into an art form and protection into a purpose. They were monsters, saviors, and everything in between. They were human, and the galaxy would never be the same.